A hostage swap between the U.S. and Iran will see the release of 5 American prisoners while strengthening the Islamic Republic, plus a House committee to issue subpoenas to the Bidens, and Ukraine could receive another $24 billion from the U.S. alone. Here to break it all down is foreign affairs expert out of Los Angeles, Lisa Daftari, who's the editor-in-chief of the Foreign Desk. Lisa, thanks for joining me once again today.
Great to be back on with you, Jeanette.
Oh, well, great to have you on. Okay, so Lisa, there's no shortage here to talk about today, but the U.S. and Iran have successfully negotiated an agreement to secure the release of 5 prisoners. They're American imprisoned. They've been in Iran there, right? So, Lisa, what's the backstory on this, and what are the terms of the agreement?
Yeah, thank you so much for covering this, Jeanette, because I think there's a lot of misinformation out there. First and foremost, obviously, when we find out that whether they're Americans or Canadians or Europeans and they're coming home, it's great news, especially for the families of those who have been worried sick about their loved ones and whether or not they would even make it back home, especially when they are in Evin prison or one of the other notoriously brutal prisons of Iran. In this case, obviously, we're very happy for these American families, but this is sending a very horrible precedent to the Iran regime. First, we're actually trying to send a message here. Since the start of the Masa Amini protest last September, we said, well, we are with the Iranian people. We want to support them, but we knew that the Biden administration still wanted a deal. They still wanted to release billions of dollars to the Iran regime. Why would they want to do that? Look, diplomacy is diplomacy. There have been presidents, there have been secretaries of state who have negotiated prisoner swaps, right? Other concessions, but not giving $6 billion, a lifeline to a regime that needs that lifeline. What will they use that money for? Well, they're swearing up and down that they're going to be using it for humanitarian purposes, but we know that that's not true. And we know that in the words of John Kerry, when he was in office, we know that some of the money will be used for terrorism. Of course it will. We are giving a budget to Iran's regime to go out there and kill more people. So if you're worried about lives, and of course we're worried about these American lives, and we're very happy that they're home, if that's the argument, then how about the lives that will be lost based on the money that will be spent on terrorism? That's first. Number two, what is the message to Iran's regime? There are currently 10,000 American citizens inside Iran, whether they're visiting family or they're there for whatever purposes. They have said, the regime officials have said, if there are any wrong moves by the West, they will grab those citizens as hostages. We are creating this game of grab a hostage, and you will get a very pretty payday, as we see in this situation. So billions of dollars of assets being given back to Iran's regime to again put back into their nefarious activities, buying them a lifeline. And if the goal of the Biden administration is to stop Iran's nuclear program, well, they may put that money towards developing nuclear weapons and their other weapons programs and their cyber capabilities and all sorts of capabilities. So that's the backstory.
So although there's a lot to celebrate with the release of these prisoners, it's actually going to strengthen the Islamic Republic of Iran, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay. So do we know who these prisoners are, or how long they were held for, or why they were there in the first place?
Right. So in most cases, people are there visiting family. So they're dual citizens, or they have been either born and raised in the United States and they go back to visit family. In most cases, they're dual citizens, whether they're Europeans or Americans or Canadians. We're finding that they were either born there, like my own family that has not gone back, but many do travel back, whether they have assets there, they want to see their properties, or they want to visit, in most cases, family. I know there's a man who's still in Iran, and he went back for his father's funeral. I mean, these are decisions that people make based on, the severity of the situation, going back for a funeral, going back for a wedding in some cases, and having to make that decision, knowing that it is dangerous, but also it's their home, it's their country, and it's their family. So there are all sorts of people who go that are for a short period of time, for a long period of time. But again, the message being that because symbolically they are American citizens, then it becomes the duty and responsibility of the American administration to get them back. And then they're basically political pawns.
Yeah, no, 100%. Okay, so the country is very much focused right now on what's going on with Trump, of course, but many are forgetting that there are some, allegations of transgressions going on on the Biden side as well. So now the House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer says that his committee will eventually issue subpoenas to the members of the Biden family and potentially President Joe Biden. And Lisa, he seems very confident that he's put together a solid case and is even quoted as saying that it will stand up in any court of law in America.
He can say that all he wants. And of course, Jeanette, this is a political game, right? So it's going to come down to a few things. It's going to come down to, how hard the Republicans push to get more transparency and to get a fair hack at this, right? To see if they can actually bring this to justice the way that it appears. I mean, look, the evidence is pretty damning as to how involved Hunter and his father were in promising foreign leaders and others, different things, and getting paid for it. That's exactly what it was. They were selling access, with what the Democrats have done in this country in terms of using the justice system, using the intelligence community to further their political agenda. Well, the pendulum's going to have to swing the other way now, and these are the same, the January 6th trial, all these things that have been put into place will now perhaps swing the other way, and the Republicans will have a chance at using these same tactics to go after the Biden family, and with a lot of evidence. So we'll see where this goes. Of course, I do foreign policy, and for me, it's always, what does this look like to our enemies? What does this look like to our allies when the United States is, has so many of its own issues, so much corruption, so much fraud, so much that these leaders are hiding, and left and right going at it without any really consideration for the other big crises that we're facing, whether it's the border, whether it's fentanyl, whether it's Ukraine and Russia, or Iran's regime, or North Korea, and the list goes on. So, that's really the perspective that I like to also bring to the table, is to really consider how this looks and what the optics are for those watching the United States and the circus that we have created here in terms of our politics.
Okay, and speaking of Washington, the White House recently outlined a funding request that includes $24 billion more for Ukraine-related expenses, but also $4 billion to increase security at the U.S.-Mexico border. So, Lisa, does it seem like Biden is maybe more concerned with what's happening in Ukraine than protecting the security of his own country?
Well, Jeanette, those price tags would suggest that, right? And more recently, over the weekend, obviously, we're watching Maui basically become nothing but ashes, and we haven't heard anything from the administration in terms of aid, in terms of funding, in terms of promise all that money to Maui. I mean, this is the United States territory, and we haven't heard anything. And as you said, at the southern border, it's not just handling the sheer number of people coming through. We're watching these sanctuary cities not be able to handle the number of people coming through. We can't vet the people that are coming through. So many different bad actors of different calibers coming through, not being able to vet them or really control that population. Also fentanyl coming through, and other drugs that are being hidden and coming through very easily. This is a mainland, these are crises that we're facing, and they affect American citizens every single day. And I know that it does trickle up north into Canada as well. So it's something that I know all of you are watching and very concerned about. So when will Washington, D.C. wake up? Will it take the next election? Will we have to wait till 2024 to see some sort of at least promises of how they will, take the reins on this country and, fix a lot of these imbalances? Why so much aid to Ukraine and Russia? Everyone wants that war to end. Don't get me wrong, Jeanette. I feel like, there's no question about it. Nobody wants innocent lives to be lost. Nobody wants the Ukrainians to be displaced or lose their country. But at the same time, we can't have this disproportionate attention, aid, resources going to that war with no end in sight, by the way. I mean, what resolution or what outcome could we potentially hope for there while we're giving up all our resources and not paying attention to, again, many of the crises that we're facing in the United States.
And not to mention that all of this is in the shadow of, there was a recent poll that CNN did that shows that the American public is saying, the U.S. has done enough to help Ukraine. Enough is enough. So I think it's already, $113 billion in aid that the U.S. has sent Ukraine.
Right. Just under $1,000 per U.S. family, when you divide it out, which is crazy to think about, right? Again, nobody wanting that war to carry on, but if we learned anything from the Pentagon leaks just a few months ago, it's that even the administration doesn't believe that there will be a positive outcome in the direction that we're hoping for. The best thing we could hope for is that Putin takes an off ramp and kind of gives up anytime soon, which doesn't look like he will do that either. But what are we putting all these resources in for? And again, to what's the cost of that in terms of, our own security, in terms of our own, priorities here in the United States?
And speaking of spending a lot of money, New York City's mayor is saying the foreign migrant crisis will cost the city $12 billion over the next 3 years to house and care for all of these newcomers. So Lisa, that seems like a really hefty price tag.
Right. And then and how will they even absorb these numbers? I mean, it's crazy when you look at the footage of these migrants sleeping on the streets of New York City. I mean, that city has completely changed and basically taken on this new shape because of the migrants coming in. Again, this is not a humanitarian cause when you see the way that they have to sleep on the streets, the way that they're not able to be absorbed into society, the way that we hope migrants are absorbed into society. So, New York City is a great cautionary tale here in terms of a blue city that was very much for it, was very much wanting to be a sanctuary city in many ways. And now seeing that when it comes down to the logistics of it, it just cannot absorb the numbers. And I know that many other US cities are going to follow that way or are already that way. I live in Los Angeles, and it's not just, we have a homeless problem. Migrants are being bused here. Again, migrants are great for the country. I don't want to be misunderstood in that realm, but there has to be a proper way to do this so that they can be properly absorbed and that they don't face a lot of these different challenges in getting here and getting settled.
And now, in keeping with this idea of migrants, Lisa, Poland is doing something a little bit different. They're asking their citizens if they would support allowing thousands of illegal immigrants into their country from Africa and Middle East. So they're holding a referendum about it. Is this something that maybe the U.S. or other countries should be maybe thinking about or should have done?
Yeah, I mean, look, let's see how it turns out. I'm very curious. I know that in Europe, there is kind of like a buyer's remorse feel because they feel like their societies and their cities have become overrun by a lot of crime, a lot of migrants that again cannot be absorbed into society. I know in France they have an issue with a lot of extremism among their migrant communities. I wonder how that's going to turn out, but it is a very good question, right? Because when we talk about immigration, when we talk about legal versus illegal immigration, these are the ideas of some very ideologically driven leaders, like the mayor of New York City, right, that now sees that this cannot be done. So why not ask the people, how they would like to handle this? This is the people's money. It's, again, taxpayer money. This is the people's cities. They will have to deal with it. And look, people obviously they want employees. They want, the population to be mixed. They want those migrants to come in. But again, at what cost? And in terms of numbers, let's talk about the details, right? I mean, you cannot be spending billions of dollars that you don't have on settling migrants when there's no vetting process, when the numbers that are coming in are just too high to really control and organize and vet. That then becomes an issue. So let's follow what's going on in Poland and report back and see how they do with that referendum.
Okay, it looks like we're about out of time here, but Lisa, thanks once again for joining me today.
Of course. Thank you so much, Jeanette. Thank you for your wonderful questions.